as mentioned last time, our method shows you how Chinese characters work together as a system. Every character you learn is a building block towards understanding that system, so it keeps learning into small, manageable chunks. The logic behind this system is a very powerful tool for learning new characters, recalling characters that you're having trouble with remembering, and making intelligent guesses about the sounds and meanings of characters you haven't even learned yet. In our previous video, we went over the first two benefits for using our system. Benefit number one is using your knowledge of sound to be able to distinguish similar components, like gen and liang. Benefit number two, our system shows you how to make intelligent predictions about characters you haven't learned yet, as I just said a few minutes ago. Benefit number three, our system helps you to remember how to write characters. Why is it that you can type characters that you can't necessarily write? Well, it's because you use the pronunciation to create a list of possible candidates, and then you select that character that you recall. What if you could access this type of power when writing by hand? Well, if you use our system to learn, you can. Think about it. When you type, you're using the pronunciation of a word or character that you know in order to create a list of possible candidates, like this. Then, when you look at the list, you select the one that you recognize. A very similar process can be used in order to help you recall characters when you're trying to write by hand. Let's take a look at an example of that. Say you already know the character bang, which means to tie or to bind, but you can't remember how to write it by hand. So what do? If you understand how Chinese characters work as a system, you can use the sound bang and the meaning to tie or bind as clues to try to figure out what the character looks like. This is very similar to what you're doing when you type Chinese on a computer. Here's how it works. The first thing you do is ask yourself, which sound components can represent the sound bang? Now for me, the first three things I think of would be feng, bang, and fang. Next, you want to think of which semantic components can represent the meaning to tie or to bind. For me, I immediately think of the type of materials that can be used to tie or bind something. So I think of jin, I think of bo, yi, or si, also called mi zi pang. At this point, you could either write these down as a list or just mentally go through them again. And if you've already learned bang, seeing the si and the bang will most likely jog your memory of it, just like when you're typing Chinese into your favorite Chinese input method. This isn't a made-up example. I actually was in a situation where I had to use this exact same logic and it worked. Essentially what you're doing here is tapping into the logic of the Chinese writing system, or in other words, how Chinese characters actually work. The more you understand how Chinese characters actually work, the easier it is to do this. Conversely, if you learn Chinese characters using a system that hides the logic, or even just makes it less obvious, you won't have these advantages until after you've learned thousands of characters, if at all. Correct character breakdowns are essential for obtaining this type of ability. The Outlier method teaches you this system in small, easily manageable chunks. And so each character you learn gets you a step closer to having your own virtual Chinese input method. Benefit number four. The Outlier system opens up a whole new world of sound connections. But for this to work, it's not only important that you know what the functional components in a character are, but you also have to know how they function. In the example I gave earlier, I mentioned that feng and fang were possible sound components for the character bang. Understanding why this is also very crucial. Feng is actually the sound component for the traditional form of bang. Bang is the sound component. But the sound component for bang is what? Feng. Knowing that b, p, and f are very closely related sounds will help you to see these things more clearly. If you learn characters using our dictionary, we will point these things out along the way. Note that you don't have to go around memorizing all these things, just seeing them and expecting them to be there is enough. Most people don't notice these sound patterns until after they've learned thousands of characters. And a lot of people don't notice them at all. And we give them to you when you really need them, and that's before you've learned thousands of characters. In summary, two of the benefits that you can get by learning characters using our method that we talked about in this video are: one, we show you better ways to be able to write characters by hand, and two, we open up a whole new world of sound patterns that you can use to better learn characters. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and if you're really into the origins and evolution of Chinese characters, check out our blog. Until next time, I'm Ash.